See that we have quorum. Pursuant to Standing Order 1063A, as the clerk of this committee, I will preside over the election of the chair and the vice chairs. I must inform the committee that the clerk of the committee can only receive motions for the election of the chair. The clerk cannot receive other types of motions, cannot entertain points of order, nor participate in debate.
Of the chair. Pursuant to Standing Order 1062, the chair must be a member of the governing party. I'm ready to receive motions for the chair.
Monsieur le Président, je suggérerais la nomination.
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate the member from the city of Greyhounds from Sault Ste. Marie.
Moved by Mr. Lemire that Mr. Sheehan be elected as chair of the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee? Forgive me. Are there any further motions? Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the motion? Right, Mr. Sheehan to take the chair.
Make sure it fits on my ear. Well, merci beaucoup, and thank you very much to my nominator again, and welcome to everyone to the 45th session of Parliament, the first INAN committee meeting to elect chairs and vice chairs, and thank you for going over the rules of this meeting. Thank you. Jaime?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to congratulate you on your role, and I'd like to nominate Jamie Schmel for vice chair.
Do you accept, Jamie? All in favor? Jaime?
I declare Mr. Schmel first vice president.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also like to nominate Sebastien Lemire for the second vice chair.
Sebastien, you accept?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Miigwech?
Okay. All right, all in favor? Yes. Perfect. Okay, Mr. Clerk, we have another order of business. It's to adopt the routine proceedings and such. There's quite a few of them, and I know that other committees have adopted them on unanimous consent. UC, is that something I heard some people talking about? Jamie so moves. I'm seeing nodding heads, so we do have unanimous consent to adopt those. Okay. All right. I think that is all we had on the business. No, I don't think there is new business. Okay. Sorry, Jamie?
Sure. Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your
Thank you.
appointment, and thank you to everyone here. I look forward to working with you in the coming weeks and months. A couple of things that we'd like to put on the agenda for either today for discussion or later. There were a couple studies in the last Parliament that did not get completed. One was the taxation study. We had drafting instructions, but I don't think we actually got to the actual report. And of course, the procurement study that we had just finished towards the end. We'd like to, if it's the will of the committee, to bring that or have that brought forward as we come back in September or whenever we're back next to go through that and finalize those two reports if possible, if the committee agrees. And then I'd like to, at some point before we adjourn, is also kind of do a motion or however the chair believes is best to do this, create the study schedule so that we are all prepared when we come back in September. And how we did it in the past, Chair, each party had their own study to do, and we kind of went in a rotation. The topic didn't matter; it was up to the individual parties to choose that, and then we just rotated through. So I think maybe we should deal with the first part first, and then maybe get to the second part, if that works for you.
Sure. Now, just because we're introducing some new ideas, we need like a UC motion, especially just a table. Because that's not really substantive, the report. They've already been worked on or almost completed. That's correct?
Yes. Do we have to bring a motion for the clerks? Or did that get in the programming motion? Because they would have the answer.
Analyst? The analyst would like to make a comment? And please take a seat at the table.
Sorry, I should have prepped you. I was going to bring this up.
They're at the end, as I suspected, as you mentioned, so that would be something that we could entertain when we reconvene again in the fall. It's very close, according to the analysts. So.
Both studies or just the procurement one?
Both are just procurement.
Would you mind clarifying? The other study was?
The one was the taxation study on the excise tax and others.
If I may, the committee held several meetings on that study and did not provide drafting instructions to the analysts.
Okay.
So that's something we could look at again in the fall.
Okay.
Okay. Fair enough. Brendan?
Sorry, could you clarify what you would anticipate being involved? So the second one would be just for drafting instructions, and the procurement would be further. Are you talking about further witnesses, et cetera, or
On the
kind of
excise tax, I think it was just drafting instructions. In my mind, we had given drafting instructions, but clearly I was conflicting with another study. So I'd like to give drafting instructions to get that completed and get that taken care of. And then the procurement one, we had just, I believe we gave drafting instructions, but didn't go much further.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, again, congratulations on you being chair, and also to the vice chairs that have just been elected. Is it the plan to adjourn for the summer after, in a few minutes?
Yeah. Our final meeting until the session in the fall.
Okay. Because I think it's unfortunate. I think Canadians saw us just get back to work, especially at INAN. And I know that whether in Yukon, I've just spoken to the miners up in Yukon, and they're having significant mining issues around permitting and the federal government. And Nunavut still has the highest rate of core housing need in any province or territory. Approximately 49% of families in Nunavut are unable to affordably secure market housing, and less than 80% of families less than 80% of families can't afford to purchase a single detached home in Nunavut. In Northwest Territories, their economies in a significant downturn and going over a cliff. Mining, quarrying, oil and gas extraction are down 16%. Construction is down 43%, and the energy sector is down 54%. And I would hope that we got back to Ottawa as we did, and we're having our first meeting, that we would continue through summer and get some of these significant issues addressed. And I think it's unfortunate that this Liberal government wants to adjourn for the summer and go on holidays while these issues still exist.
Jamie? Yes, Jaime, sorry. I just read it. I know you was Jaime all that.
As much as I'd like to get into debate and discussion that gets right into the mix of the work that we have in store from us, I thought we had a really good practice the last time we opened up Indigenous and Northern Affairs, not only for the new members, but for the clerks, for the staff working around that, is that we're going to be spending the next 2 to 3 years potentially talking about Indigenous people in Canada. And many of us don't know the true history of Indigenous peoples in this country. And one of the amazing things that I thought we did last time was we started this committee by making sure that we had a base understanding of the Indigenous history, and we asked to do a session of cultural sensitivity training, such like a Kairos blanket exercise for all of the members, clerks, and staff in camera on the very first meeting, so that before we start talking about the things that we're having in our ridings and the problems, that we ensure we're doing it in a good way, that we're talking about it in a culturally sensitive way. And I thought that was a really strong way to start the committee, and I would be asking that to move forward at our first meeting, when we get back, and I know that I'm not going to table a motion now because I have to give 48 hours notice and would never put the chair in a position with having to rule on anything like that, but I just wanted for the intentions of my colleagues to be there and saying that what I'm hoping is that we can start the first meeting in a good way is the cultural sensitivity and Kairos blanket exercise and give that some contemplation over the summer, and more than happy to talk with the vice chairs and yourself, Mr. Chair, about how we can formulate what are the studies to move forward and any motions that are moving forward, because I do agree we did have a rotation moving forward. I would disagree that it didn't matter what the subject was. I thought that the subject had to be something that we all thought was important to Indigenous people in Canada. Then we had a discussion around that. I'd hate to ram through things that we don't have a consensus around, that this is something that's pressing for Indigenous peoples in Canada. And I think a good dialogue on that can happen after we figure out and do a cultural sensitivity training. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And then Sebastian.
Well, thank you. I agree with Jaime. I also want to thank Mr. Zimmer for bringing up a number of really important issues for the North. I think there's no end of pressing issues that we have for Indigenous Canadians and Northerners alike. I think we all hope and should take some rest over the summer when needed, but more importantly, I'm looking forward to really important conversations in my riding and around the North. We have C5, where important conversations are to take place about building Canada strong. And in our own context in the Yukon, we'll have a new premier, we'll have an upcoming election, we have a new Grand Chief. So these are really important conversations I look forward to having before we set ourselves up in a good way to have studies that address some of the priority issues for Northern and Indigenous Canadians.
Well, Jamie and Jaime had mentioned about the subcommittee. That was part of the routine proceeding. So we do have a subcommittee that can deal with a lot of this conversation that we're having right now over the summer, that we can talk about things and start getting things going. So, Sebastian, and then Jamie.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would invite us to maintain a collaborative environment here, which is what they often do in Indigenous committees, and we have had this here in recent years. I think that we are currently in committee business. First, I'd like to support my colleague Jaime's idea. Sorry, it's very difficult to get your names right when you're side by side, especially in French. But Mr. Baptiste. Right. So my colleague's idea of starting with this training, I think that we can carry this in a formal way today. And I'd also like to offer some other ideas. I think our analysts were looking forward to ending prorogation and getting back and getting to the end of the election to get back to work. I'm thinking of sorry, I'm struggling with your names today. But Mr. Schmel suggested 2 studies. I'd like to add a 3rd study to finish. I don't want us to get back and restudy it and add witnesses, but I think we should get back to the report. We have communities that came to speak, and it's important that this be in a report. And there are 2 other subjects that I would like us to work on over the summer. And then I think that'll be operational when we come back. So I would invite us to look into this. If this sparks debate, we can table a notice of motion. But if not, if we have unanimous consent, then I hope that we can begin working on this summer. I would be happy with that.
So this, if we're going to start bringing forward new motions, then we'd need 48 hours, because that would be substantive and wouldn't. But that certainly can be done, and we still can talk about it over the summer and how we're going to program everything into to place too as well. So I've got Jamie, and then you and Jaime.
Sure. I guess the first part I was going to talk about is the training. I think we're on side for that. If there is a way to get unanimous consent and get this rolling so that our analysts and the team have the chance over the summer to set everything up and get everything rolling rather than wasting time, it seems like everyone around the table is fine with that, a unanimous consent for that motion. So maybe we can do that. Okay. Well, okay. I'll deal with that, and I'll do on my second thing.
For the fall. Yeah, for the first meeting back, I believe we're saying. Yeah.
Perfect. And the second part, I just wanted to, we did allow the rotation. The topics were decided upon by the individual parties. I know that you did disagree with that in the last Parliament, but unfortunately the Bloc and NDP, we all thought we should be able to choose our own topic. So I guess it'll be up to the committee to decide if we do that again and not. But yes, we are prepared with some ideas, but again, we'll deal with that maybe when we get back.
Okay.
I wonder if we can seek clarity from the clerks as what we can do to get some of these things that we didn't finish off in the last the reports, just in terms of what is possible for us to get done over the summer without getting into committee business or getting into any additional things that we have to do here, introducing motions. Is there anything that we can do that just to finish off some of the work that we've done in the past through the summer? I'd like to ask the analysts to give us just a little bit of feedback as to what we can accomplish over the summer without having to reintroduce motions and getting into any kind of business outside of what we're doing here.
Can you suspend? We're going to suspend just for a couple of minutes. They're requesting it. I think, but I think one of the things, though, before we suspend is I think we're all saying the same thing, is that we'll keep this work going. It might be a little more informally, but we have a subcommittee too as well. So because other, yeah, okay, you're retracting. Okay, I think we're okay then. All right, we're okay.
Okay.
So we're all in agreement. We're going to work over the summer on these ideas and thoughts and prioritize them and set the agenda for a great session coming forward. So I think I am going to move to adjourn. I see nodding heads.
Même qu'on puisse déposer un avis de motion.
Could we table a notice of motion on certain things that will be studied in committee before we adjourn?
I'm going to have to ask for a notice of motion. Okay. Okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. So a first notice of motion, and it will be sent to you by email. So the suggestion that pursuant to 1082, Standing Order 1082, that we undertake a study on Environment Canada, its legal ability to consult with First Nations, especially for projects on natural resources and infrastructure projects, and Indigenous peoples' access to water and natural resources and projects that could affect Indigenous peoples' rights, that we look at best practices and the challenges identified by Indigenous groups that have already been identified, and B, that we look at the impacts on First Nations ancestral rights and treaty rights under the Building Canada Act and the implementation of national interest projects, that we look at their free, prior, and informed consent, and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, that we hear from witnesses, including those from universities, Indigenous peoples, and those in the field of law, that the following ministers be called to appear for an hour each: the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, Minister of Indigenous Services, the Minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade and intergovernmental affairs, and the One Canadian Economy, and the Minister of Climate Change, as well as the Minister of Transport, that the committee report to the House to ensure transparency and respect of due consultation. So that's my notice of motion, Mr. Chair. There would be a second notice of motion pursuant to Standing Order 1082. The committee undertake a study on Indigenous communities who do not have their own reserve territory, that the federal government accelerate processes related to this, and that there be 4 meetings held on this topic, followed by recommendations made to the House, and a third notice of motion related to what Mr. Schmale mentioned on the study of barriers to economic development in Indigenous communities. And this is a study that was undertaken in a previous session from the order of reference from November 2024, that the committee during the current session report its recommendations on this study to the House. And that was a study on pretendians, being those that pretend to be Indigenous. And there was a previous report on this, and the Bloc Québécois tabled a motion to the Committee of Procedure that may be of interest to members of the committee on the gaps that were found in the previous election campaign in Abitibi, St. James, Nunavik. There were issues with Indigenous people not being able to vote. So I think that this would be interesting to members of the committee. And thank you for listening, Mr. Chair.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Meeting is going to be adjourned, and I see nodding heads. Good.